Hello and welcome to episode 243 of our SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is May 26th, and together with Goran, we are here to talk about anything related to SAP and Microsoft. Hello, everyone. I'm just returning from Sapphire in Orlando, and among a lot of AI-related discussions, the topic of security was also top of mind. Several RISE customers actually approached me and asked about the SAP LogServ integration with Microsoft Sentinel. It looks like the latest release from SAP and Microsoft addressed something that is quite top of mind for customers at the moment. To give us more insights on what this LogServ and Sentinel integration is all about, we have three guests with us today. I'm happy to have Hemanth from SAP and Martin and Bastian from Microsoft with us today. Welcome, everyone. So, as always, before we dive into the topic, let's start with a quick round of introduction. Hemanth, maybe you can get started.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ulke, for that. And hi, everyone. My name is Hemanth Verma. I work as Chief Security Architect of Enterprise Cloud Services within SAP. So Enterprise Cloud Services, we are a private cloud service provider for all the critical SAP applications. So we are the most desired place where you want to host your SAP applications right now. Our growth over the last 3-4 years has been significant, where we started from 400-500 customers to a base of almost 8,000 customers over the last 3 to 4 years. So the pace has been good. And also at the same time, while growing at this pace, we also noticed that there is a need to be having a significant amount of security services to be complementing what we are offering on RISE, on Enterprise Cloud Services. And I guess that is why we are here today. And yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, it's great to have you here. Bastian, maybe over to you.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, and good to be back on that show, Holger. Good to see you again. So yeah, my name is Bastian. I've been working with Microsoft for close to 4 years now. Since my start, I've always been working with SAP as a customer and as a partner, and recently joined the team of Martin and Holger also for doing co-engineering, co-development work together with SAP. And in that role, I recently also supported both of Hemanth and Martin on this initiative that we're going to talk about today.
Really cool. Yeah, Bastian is one of the key players why we can keep up with the pace that Hemanth and SAP have on this. My name is Martin. I'm a product manager in Azure Core, same team as Holger is. And as part of the role, as Bastian already mentioned, there's co-engineering efforts together with SAP, like with Hemanth's team, but also helping all the product groups at Microsoft interfacing with the SAP workload. And security is my specialty domain. That includes Entra, Defender for Cloud, and Sentinel. And of course, today, focus topic is Sentinel, but the implications of LogServ also branch out into various other parts of the Microsoft security suite.
Cool. Now, listeners or viewers of our show, they have heard Sentinel quite a few times in the past, but I'm sure not all of them know about LogServ. So maybe we can start to talk a little about what is actually LogServ. How does it, Hemanth, you said you are part of the ECS group at SAP. So how does, maybe we start with this. How does this all fit together? What is ECS doing? I mean, you already mentioned RISE. You mentioned the private cloud edition. But how does LogServ play a role there? And maybe let's start with this one.
Yes, definitely. So let's start with why customers would need logs and what kind of logs these customers are really interested in. When they migrate to an infrastructure and a platform as a service, which ECS is, they are losing visibility into the infrastructure layer, and also gaining access to certain application logs can be more like shoveling a lot of data, manual work kind of a way. And also some of the APIs have been very, very hard to be consumed. From a security point of view, especially for our SIM colleagues, and also for a application team who is trying to integrate this data into Sentinels and different other SIM solutions which they have, or even like a simple log management system. That is where we first started. The goal of it is to share raw logs to our customers from infrastructure, from the application layer, and also from a system layer point of view to our customers in near real time. If I can give you an analogy, and this is something we took a page from the Azure's playbook, it's very important to have a trusted cloud service provider, but also it is very important to be able to have an infrastructure to be able to share the log data with our customers. So that page would be like, if I have to compare it, we would be a log analytics workspace kind of an equivalent where we will offer customers a retention option for these logs, but also to be able to be integrated with their different log management systems. And Sentinel is one of our key partners right now. Or should I also go as far as saying like only partner, where we started this journey with, and we are seeing a lot of interest coming, not just from customers who are on Azure, but also on different other hyperscalers for that matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Sentinel works for all the like SAP flavors. Doesn't matter where your RISE system runs. Yeah? But I liked the categories that you put up at the very early days when we started talking about this a month, where you said you have customers that say, I just want the logs to be kept somewhere. Yeah. So the retention time of LogServ is enough. Yeah. Give me 365 days. You keep care of it. I don't need to see the rest. Yeah? So I trust you. And others are saying, but I need to have them myself. Yeah. I need to store them wherever I want them to have. Yeah. So I want to be in control. Yeah? And everything in between, right? That's where the sweet spot is of like our efforts for everyone who wants to take a bit of control over this. And others are fine with just storing it on your end and keep it there. No effort in ingesting it somewhere.
And also, like, I think it is very important for a customer, for example, like when they're working with Sentinel and stuff like it, like, let's say, for example, we are a global company. To us, I'll give you a very simple example. Like we wouldn't differentiate the traffic which is coming from X part of the region versus a Y part of the region or anything like it. But a customer looks at it from a different point of view. He wants to apply his own, let's say, geolocation metrics or some IP addresses where he doesn't want to see, or even his own employees not being able to access this from home. And instead, they might prefer accessing it directly from the VPN. So these kind of things, it is a very specific customer perspective. If they have access and that control, as you say, they can apply those kind of logics using platforms like Sentinel or different other parts of Microsoft's suite, different tools from the Microsoft suite.
I think
exactly,
one other thing that you mentioned also resonated very well. I mean, with RISE, we have customers that typically do a migration from their on-prem environment into RISE with SAP, basically. So whereas in the past they had full control, obviously they had access to all the logs, they probably had very deep insights. Now it's a little of giving up control. I mean, that's the whole idea, right, of a SaaS offering in the end. And with this, you give up the control, you give up the trust, but still, customers probably, since they are used to having access to all this information, now they still want to get this the log data. They want to have access to this. Whether it is required or not is a different story. But just from a I'm used to have access to all my landscapes data. Now I give it to SAP, and with LogServ you basically have the capabilities. You offer the customers the opportunity to also have still access to these kinds of logs. So I think this is also a little transparency and making the customer feel more secure that they do have access to these logs.
Definitely.
Although they are running on RISE now, obviously.
It is also indeed being more secure. That is the whole reference architecture, which is what we as RISE are offering. In there, we are thinking about SAP specific architecture, SAP specific communication, which is open. And these logs are just a starting point, like, okay, guys, this is pretty much like telling the story, what you see within the best practices, which is what this architecture is. It's not just a network system setup or an application setup. It is also a blueprint on how this should be run. And we, complementing them with more and more security services, makes this a complete security suite or a place where a customer can be rest assured that his, let's say, his crown jewels, which is what more often than not SAP applications are not just hosted in the proper way, but also secured in an appropriate way. And we want to build a security suite around it where consumption of these security services can help them with their own security standards and also compliance standards eventually. So that would be the goal there.
And we see also customers starting with the whole like spectrum of all the LogServ logs, but then they start making decisions on which ones do they need for actual threat protection. Because on the Sentinel side, it's about correlating with your wider ecosystem, like having things where the users, the IPs, or other like matching attributes can be matched, etc., across the correlation engine. And not all sources are relevant for this. So if you do this for compliance, of course, you take everything. But if you do it for threat protection, you start selecting much more like granularly on what you actually need for this. And we see customers like really making that journey, starting with everything and then maybe considering different routes for the data actually. So, and for SaaS solutions, you still need threat protection, but it's not the same maybe as when you were in charge of the whole stack, which makes completely sense. Shall we then dive into some actual drawings, Bastian? Would you mind sharing the post, and then we start looking at some details and head towards the demo?
Sure. So, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. I think we want to kick it off with a discussion of the architecture overview, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's the last post that Hemanth co-published with us. Yeah. It's in his account. That's the GA announcement. So SAP fully supports the integration from their side, and also on the Sentinel marketplace. And in there we have like a drawing that shows the two like players in this. So we have a customer side on the right, and we have the device side on the left, where the ECS team is in charge of running and deploying also the integration. And we've depicted the process a bit. How do you as a customer get access to this? And the journey starts with the security operator at the bottom right, who then uses this box with the number 1, and you start deploying from the Sentinel Content Hub. And we'll see this in a bit, where we actually perform the step 1 so that you can like picture it easily. And essentially, you create the resources from the Sentinel side with a button click. It gets you everything that's required to offer the receiving end. That's why it's called data collection endpoint, the first object there. And the required authentication parts that you need to hand over to SAP, which is Entra relevant. And then there we have a process and a description what you need to hand over to SAP so that they can actually start sending the data towards you. So it's a push-based mechanism. And there then you see step 2 exactly, where you share the credentials and endpoints information with SAP. There's a specific role, the TSM and or the CDM. SAP ECS has like dedicated people responsible for you, and they're assigned to each RISE project, and they can then take care of it. And then an automation in Hemanth's team actually spins up the resources, and then you get a notification and data starts flowing. And as we started at the beginning, you put this into your wider context. Sentinel covers SAP systems everywhere, also on premises or in the cloud, outside of the RISE context, so that you really have a thing that covers all the scenarios, including RISE, where LogServ is the log supplier for the things that they own and manage. Exactly.
So basically, just to quickly recap, so on I mean, I'm a RISE customer, obviously, and my RISE subscription can run in AWS, Azure, GCP, whatever. But then I also have my subscription in Azure, obviously. So the first thing that I need to do is set the connection basically between the Sentinel publisher on the RISE side and the thing that I own on the Azure side, which also means I'm responsible for paying the bill for the workspace and everything, and then I get the data from the data is then pushed from RISE into my environment, and then it's up to me what I want to do with this.
Exactly, yeah. You get to define what data arrives, where it goes, yeah. And the solution that we've published together with SAP targets Sentinel out of the box. Yeah? But of course, everyone who works with log analytics workspaces can handle it however they want. Yeah? But that's the solution we're handing out of the box.
Cool. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And this block then goes on to tell you which details you need to hand over. So we will be actually going into the portal ourselves and kick this off. And there's still a note in there from Hemanth and his team that AWS and GCP will follow next. At this point in time, so May 2025, RISE on Azure customers are the first ones that can be deployed. But we are close to the others going forward. That's one of the roadmap items for the rest of the year to add more RISE flavors.
Cool.
All right. Shall we move on to the portal?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so basically what we wanted to show you is to, so sorry, Hemanth, did I?
To say something? I just had a bad throat. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so what we thought what could be helpful for our listeners and viewers was to basically show you how easy it is to basically deploy these components here, right? So as Martin just mentioned, you as a customer, as a RISE customer, will need to deploy some kind of interfaces to make sure that this data can be ingested from the SAP RISE side, and which is this green box that we see here. So you could think that it is required to basically deploy this data collection endpoint and the app registration on your own, but things are a little bit easier than that, because what we managed to do is to deploy and to develop something which is called a Sentinel solution. And this is pretty easy and pretty straightforward. So what we already prepared is a dedicated resource group for the sake of this demo. This is what you can see here, right? So just before we jumped on that call here was that I created a resource group which has this name LogServ to Sentinel demo. And it already contains the log analytics workspace, which is just a very plain and easy, straightforward log analytics workspace with nothing more that we actually configured on top of that. We also onboarded this one already to Sentinel, right? So that is one step that you would need to do. So you typically open up Sentinel and then specify that you have an additional workspace that you would like to integrate with Sentinel. And this is what we already did. So on this page here, you see there is Sentinel, and we've already selected this workspace. And now we have the option to browse down to that content hub here on the left side. So you see in the section of content management, there is one blade which is called Content Hub. And this comes actually with a couple of predefined solutions that allow you the integration with other data sources. And if we just look for RISE here, there is a predefined module, let's say, so like one item here on that content hub, which you can see here. So this is for SAP LogServ integration for S/4HANA Cloud Private Edition. And we just need to install that here. And in a couple of seconds, we will have the solutions of that item here deployed in our log analytics workspace. So you see that's installed now, and now we can just easily browse down here and see data connectors, and we will have now that solution deployed here. And the only thing that we would need to do now is to basically deploy that connector to expose these kinds of endpoints for SAP. So we just open up that page, click the Open Connector page item here, and then we have the option here to just deploy the push connector resources. You see there are a couple of items here already which are not yet populated. So there is a tenant ID, there is the application ID which is not yet populated, secret same, and a couple of further IDs that we need to connect. And all that we need to do to basically deploy the stuff that we see here in this green box is to just hit this deploy push connector resources, and then confirm that we want to install that solution in our log analytics workspace. And then we see you already get that feedback from the user interface that the data collection rule and the data collection endpoint, along with some other technical items, are getting deployed now.
One more thing here, Bastian.
Yeah, sure.
Some of the customers were having challenges because you require, of course, Entra rights and Sentinel rights for this to finish. Yeah. And of course, Bastian has the mighty powerful user in his tenant. Customers who don't have that, they do it in a two-step process, where they push this button, create the things we will just see in the next step in the resource group, and have the Enter person do their part in the second step and then share back. So there is a process for that too, but ideally you have someone who's like can do it in one step. If not, but there are like ways to achieve it in a different way. Well, then let's head over to the resource group then. See what.
Yeah, Johnson,
also argue like.
Go ahead.
Sorry, interject. This time it wasn't coughing. I was actually trying to interrupt. So, as I was saying, it is the most secure way. The way this authentication is working, it is basically two Azure tenants, which is what RISE on one side is and the other side is the customer, to form that trust between us with the right actor ID privileges so that we can execute this in an appropriate way and not just like have some temporary shared access signatures or some access keys or anything like it to achieve the same objective. Tapping into that area will give us a more enhanced integration functionality where it is very long living in that manner. So just wanted to say that because we also think like many customers did ask us for that. So one of the thing is we wanted to articulate that very clearly, that it is not just a very secure way, but also like it is very in a long-term way where your identity is what we gave access to over the between two different tenant IDs. Sorry, two different Azure tenants. So
perfect.
Yeah, so you see that these text fields are now populated with specific values, right? And you need to hand them over now to SAP. And coming back to that architecture drawing, what we just did was step one, right? We deployed the Sentinel solution here, and we got a couple of items here deployed. And now what you as a customer would need to do would be to collect these items that we just saw on that interview, on that page, on the web application page, on the Azure portal, and then share these credentials and the endpoints via some secure channel with SAP. What happened behind the scenes is what we see when we open up the resource group here. Just briefly hit refresh. And then you see that there is a log analytics workspace. That's the one what we just deployed that solution into. There is the data collection endpoint, which is basically some kind of REST interface that will allow SAP to post the data and ingest the data into the log analytics workspace. And there is also a data collection rule. And if we open up the data collection rule, I'm sure that most of our viewers will know the access control blade here to actually manage access permissions on any kind of Azure resource. If we open up that one and explore the role assignments, there will be one role assignment for a role which is the metrics publisher. Let's collapse this one and scroll down a little bit. So you see here there's the monitoring metrics publisher, and there is a new app registration that is using that role currently and has that role assigned on that data collection rule. So this is the way access management works on these items, right? To ensure that not anyone can publish data into that log analytics workspace, but only specific identities, especially the one that we see here.
Yeah, and that's basically also the information that you hand over to the SAP colleagues, so that they have the right access using this SAP LogServ.
Correct. Yeah. So basically let's maybe briefly explore the ideas, right? So if we open up that one here and enter, you will see that app registration has a specific application ID, which is this one. And if we go back to the overview page, you see that this is precisely that value, right? So we actually hand over the credentials to SAP, allowing them to use that app registration for ingestion of data, log data into that log analytics workspace.
And as the capabilities of the space evolve, this connector can also evolve. So this is the state of today. But of course, as maybe other flows become available, whatever they are, they can be then started using as well. All right, really cool. So shall we now see some data, Bastian?
Yeah, so once that is handed over, right, SAP will initiate the deployment process and set up the Sentinel publisher. which is going to ingest all the data. And of course, we have not done this for this specific log analytics workspace yet, right? Because we just created the deployment here. But we have like an older log analytics workspace that we can use to explore the data here, which is that one here. So I've just opened up the workspace here and browsed to that log section, and all the data which is going to be injected will be in a table which is called SAP LogServ _CL. So, I mean, very easy way to just explore the content here is just to work with this take 10 items, which is take 10 command, which is just picking like 10 random items from the table, and you see that there is already some content ingested here. Looking at these columns, you see that there is this CLZ _dir and sub-dir directories, which sort of provide a classification of the log entry that we have here. And one thing that we can maybe do is to just get an idea of how many items we have per directory. So let's maybe do the following. Let's apply an aggregation on count and classify this by CLZ directory. Execute that query, and you see that we've got currently data ingested along the categories of Linux, DNS, Windows, SAP, Web Dispatcher, Proxy, and also HANA.
Yeah, where HANA means HANA database, right? And Linux AWS logs. Yeah. So from what LogServ for this sandbox provides can be understood by looking at this directory structure. Because Hemanth's team, they came up with a way of structuring this. And this is the way you can like understand what you have and also make decisions what to keep. Yeah? Because you can see the Linux OS logs seem to be much more chatty than the rest. So you can already like understand a bit how this looks like. And this has been running, I don't know, for 2 hours. Yeah?
Roughly, yeah.
Roughly, yeah. And we'll be choosing one of them who are like demanded very often by the customers when we ask them, hey guys, what do you want to do with LogServ plus Sentinel? And then database log is one of the most demanded things that comes up first. So maybe let's head over there a bit, but then see what we can explore.
Yeah. So why don't we explore the entries that we have in the HANA section here? So let's select only the values that have HANA as value for a CLZ dir. That's a long table, right? But we can just easily expand this in that view here, and then there is this line raw, which basically contains the raw data from that source system, right? And you see that there is a timestamp. There is also some strings indicating the system, including the actual message that we have here. And what you can now do basically is to do some parsing on that value, of course, right? So that's the raw value. I think they have come up with like a unified data schema for any kind of source system. So this is why it might make sense to explore the specific content of that raw column a little bit more. And we did this just before that meeting. So let me maybe copy over that command here. So what we are doing here is just to basically split that content by a semicolon and then just pick up the specific values from the respective columns.
And we can do that because the HANA audit log has a fixed structure. Yeah. So if you know the HANA audit log, you can confidently do it this way.
Yeah. Sure. That's a good insight. Yeah, of course. I mean, that format can vary from source system to source system, obviously, right? Yeah, and for the HANA audit log, we did this here. And now if we explore that section, you see the host system, for example, the SID, which is KSE in that case, the IP host system again, the category, severity, the user invoking that specific command, and so on. And that's actually something which is pretty nice, right? Because it provides you with a lot of details on what is going on your database.
And now you are in the position where those are entities in the Sentinel sense, and you have something that can be correlated. Because now you can surface this to detection rules in analytics, and you can like fire it up also for Defender to correlate with other activities. And this is the point where this becomes, where this now has security threat protection value, because you made it available, not having some messages text. Now you have entities that mean something.
Perfect. Yeah.
So as a matter of fact, I mean, just last week when we were preparing for the session, we had one item which was literally let me bring up that message and that query here, which was literally identifying an event when the password of the system user was reset, right? So that's something that we had in our demo data last week. I mean, just for cost optimization purposes, we deleted the logs, or we delete them every day, right? So we do not keep a lot of log data in our demo environment. This is why we do not have this today. But I mean, that's the point where it's probably going to get interesting, right? When you identify the critical messages here and provide some kind of capabilities for analysis on that one.
And that's not, I mean, you now have the manual query here, obviously, but Sentinel would have been able, or if then Sentinel would be connected, obviously, here to this log analytic workspace, then exactly these kinds of events could be flagged, could be automatically reported to the user, so that they can take a look at and see, look, the system password was modified, and then raise an alert or whatever, and then ask the user to follow up, or the administrator to follow up there.
That's one of our backlog items, however, because Sentinel already has a set of HANA database detections, right? But they are based off like a different agent who uses syslog. But for this one, we're looking to like transform the detection that we have for syslog onto the LogServ database.
Okay.
That takes like another iteration for us and to be published as part of the solution. But of course, we require also inputs from partners and customers. What else is required for them? Which use cases they want to cover? And I see also partners considering to build their own solutions on top of this, where they supply the workbooks, the analytic rules, etc. on top of this as based off their offering. So we will be having a split there. What we publish as standard solution as baseline, and what others build on top of it. And this is like to give you a feeling on how you would approach it. Everyone who starts from scratch, this is basically how you could go about it, like Bastian did. And many of the customers start doing because they want to know what's in LogServ. What do I actually get in my like logs?
No, it makes total sense. Yeah.
Because again, from customer to customer, what they are interested in is where it varies way too much. It's like you have users who are HANA users. You have users who are pure infrastructure guys who are only interested in proxy logs or VPC flow logs or the geolocation of an IP address or anything like it. You have customers or even like application teams who are only interested in web dispatcher data or WAF data for that matter. It's like, I think this feedback loop should continue for a little while before the content actually populates, because I think the objective should be what is more helpful for all different kinds of RISE customers or even like security log users. So that will definitely needs a strong thinking, because otherwise white noise is not a very good noise. You don't want to overwhelm your application team with unnecessary security information versus something else, or even your security team with HANA alerts or ABAP alerts, which again can be a bit overwhelming per se, So yeah,
exactly.
That's what I think.
All right, so that's on the queries and alerting. We also want to show how to filter. So on Friday, I published another blog post which actually talks about how to do this, because that's like the second question we always get from customers. How do I influence what I ingest actually here? So most of them don't want everything. And HANA database, for instance, is a good sample. And we have that in our like sample query also. When you scroll down a bit further, even Bastian, there's a table where I try to come up with a baseline how to define which tables or logs you want. This is like opinionated by me and all the conversations we're having. So maybe some of the partners disagree or come up with other ways of looking at this. But it's supposed to give you like a framework to get started. How do I choose? And for instance, the database is really audit relevant to you and also security threat protection relevant, because that's where your data is, and also where you have access when you like influence from the application layer. So that's considered a high value item in terms of threat protection, whereas maybe a load balancer, for instance, which has only networking relevance and of course sees also IPs and communication from A to B, but it has no context on what it is about, which is very different to when you have actually audit information from your database. So that's how it's classified a bit. And of course, volumes. You saw already the count that Bastian did before. Linux had like the highest amount in our 2-hour ingestion exercise. So these are the metrics to make a choice. What do I want? When you scroll down further, Bastian, we get to see also a image where to make that choice. Exactly. So we were before on the deploy connector image, where Sebastian created the resources. And one of the things that you get is this DCR, the data collection rule. And each collection endpoint comes with an arbitrary number of collection rules where you can define for your ingested data stream what to do with it. And at the bottom right, you see again a KQL query, a Kusto query, which isolates the stream by HANA, Linux, and DNS folder, the CLZ directory. And this is where you made the choice already to discard everything which is not in this folder on your stream. And in there, you will have the full freedom with the KQL language, with complex selections and like projections, whatever you need, to influence what data actually arrives on your end, and which table it hits. In our case, the SAP LogServ _CL table, but you could also point this at very different tables or in different pricing plans. When we scroll down a bit further there, Bastian, there's like a screenshot of the different like table types. At the left, we see this blue box called Analytics Plan. This is what you get with the solution, the LogServ solution in Sentinel, with the purpose in mind to do real-time, as fast as possible, threat protection. But of course, there's also other things that we offer. And the auxiliary plan, for instance, is really slow, low-cost storage, which is then also much cheaper, for instance. And then you could, for instance, make a choice to put logs that you don't need for threat protection, but for auditing and compliance, put it there, especially if it's large, and everything that needs to be fast and is important, that goes to the analytics plan. And this is something you can influence yourself, just on the data collection rule level.
Nice, yeah.
Exactly, and that's the beginning of the journey, so to say. You have a connector, you get data, you can decide what to do with it. We introduced a bit how to think about the queries and what you can do with it, and from there we are like continuing to evolve what we want to do together. Influenced what customers and partners are saying they need on this. But Hemanth and Bastian and I, we already have some items we want to do next, and one of them is to think about like a baseline of like detections that make sense. Maybe you want to also share a bit more on the next steps there, Hemanth, going forward.
Yeah, I think our forward thinking, I would say, in this case, the reason why we have everything pointed towards a log analytics workspace is from the Azure solutions point of view. It is not just from a Sentinel point of view, or even like an observability layer or advanced data analytics, or even with your auxiliary plan on what to do with from a compliance point of view. We are looking at it in a bigger way in the future. So that is where the first step is to integrate with log analytics workspace. That opens us a lot of possibilities. That is just from a LogServ point of view. But also what we have right now in enterprise cloud services is with LogServ, we are right now serving pretty close to 20,000 data lakes, or let's say 20,000 log analytics workspaces towards the log analytics, ready to be integrated into a log analytics workspace of Sentinel. We are trying to enrich that with more security information. We are launching new security services, giving more advanced observability use cases, or even like offering additional detection capabilities. When you say detection capabilities, I meant it more like in a log analytics workspace point of view. So you don't have to log everything. You can just configure an alert in there and just look at what the log analytics alert is talking about. Get rid of the white noise at any So like I said, I wasn't joking when I first initially said like taking a leap out of Azure Playbook. This is how we saw LogServ as, and now we are enriching it with more and more security information, and we will have more security services coming through, which without a doubt, we want to integrate into our partners' platforms like Sentinel or most of the Azure suites, whatever is applicable there. So definitely, like Sentinel, observability layer, these are the key areas where we are really looking into.
Yeah, from our point of view, that means more sources. Yeah, LogServ is evolving. Yeah, Raven as well. Yeah, the product built on top, and correlation, yeah, across Entra, Defender, and
Exactly.
what Sentinel provides, yeah, so that you really can cover, understand RISE and the ECS workloads, and in the context of your wider ecosystem as where it runs. Yeah.
So
Perfect. No, great. I think this looks really great, and as you said, the foundation is done basically. There are already some analytics that you can do on top of this, but this is the starting point, and now customers, partners, yourself can build on top of this and add much more additional insights. So I think actually this means we need to have you back in this round at some point in time to give another deep dive on the topic. Maybe take a look at some of the new integrations, the new analytic capabilities that are then available. So for me, this was very insightful. Again, coming fresh from Sapphire, I know there is a lot of customer interest in this, so I'm sure you are on the right track there, and I'm looking forward to seeing more in this space.
Right.
Okay, then with this, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see each other again in a future episode. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
so
having
much.
me.
Bye bye.
Thank you,
Have a
bye-bye.
lovely day. Cheers.